Hello and welcome to the Reality Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm Mac Taylor, and guys, today we're actually going to start our first coverage of a season currently ongoing, which I want to start out by saying we are going to be talking today about Big Brother Canada 9, the 2-night premiere. I didn't do these. I did these as one podcast because I was going to split these up originally, but the first night literally was just the intro packages we already saw out on YouTube, and pretty much the competition. So there was I had one page of notes, and then for the other one I had a lot more notes and a lot more juice to talk about. And how I'll be doing this subsequently is I will probably do a podcast per episode here on in, but I did lump these two together for the start. That's how I'm gonna do it. Also, I want to say that with the arrival of Paramount Plus, they are, and this caught me completely off guard, because I want to say that this was not planned. When I covered The Real World Season 1, I had zero idea that they were going to be taking that cast, and now they're living together in that loft again. Paramount Plus put out the first episode on launch day yesterday. And yeah, I was totally fucking shocked. Because again, I didn't plan that. I just did that because it was part of all the reality shows I wanted to cover. And it was the first season. So it's really cool that I'm going to also be covering that live. I'm going to wait till the first 4 episodes are out to do that, though, because I will be doing those in 4-episode chunks. But guys, that fucking happened. They put the original Real World cast back to Real World House. So I will be talking about that. Look for that in the coming weeks, probably the next couple of weeks, because it'll take a little bit to get those first 4 episodes out. Now on to the monster in which we're actually going to be talking about. Big Brother Canada 9 is here. Big Brother Canada's back. Last season, we didn't get to finish. It was, COVID happened, and they had to cancel the season. And I was sad because there was a lot of potential. And I was hoping that maybe a couple of them may have came back for the season, but we have an all-new cast of 14 people. And I like this cast. I have hope for this season, and I am very excited to be here talking about some Big Brother Canada in these times. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So we start out by meeting our 14 contestants that will be spending the summer battling it out for $100,000 and a bunch of other random shit that Big Brother Canada gets in their sponsors. We get the twist, which is that we will basically have a Survivor type deal where we will split the house into 2 teams of 7, and the captains were voted on and chosen by Canada. And so the captains are Kiefer will be the captain of Team Defender. He is, I love Kiefer. He is the father, kind of like the father of the house. He's the kind of the older guy. He's the kind of chunkier, not like a lot of the reality show contestants are in shape, in their 20s, 30s, single, very attractive people. Kiefer is kind of like the antithesis of that, and he is a DJ, like a radio host kind of deal. He has a lot of personality, and I have a lot of hope for him, so I'm glad he was chosen to be captain Team Defender. And the person who will be captaining Team Destiny is Tina, who is a graphic designer from Newfoundland. And she is also just recently taken up hockey. She is, again, kind of the older woman of the house, as her and her partner have been together for quite some time. And again, kind of not the atypical reality show contestant. So I was surprised to see Tina as a captain, but I am happy to see her get this spot. So, and the twist for them is they will enter the house together, and then they are in a room watching everyone else enter. So instead of getting introduced and have to try to judge quickly on the spot they can kind of see what these people look like and kind of start getting an idea in their head of who they want on their team. So then we meet the next group. The first group of 4 is Tashawn, who is the urban planner. He is is the kind of prototypical reality show contestant. He's very in shape. He seems like he has a lot of charisma, and that's about all we really know about Tashawn. Beth is the social worker. She's very outgoing from what she says. Everyone says they're athletic from this point on, so I'm really not going to go into that. But she's kind of like the southern farm girl. At one point, she's like, I just love the smell of cow shit. It smells like home. And I'm like, yeah, cow shit smells like where I came from too. But I'm not exactly fond of it. So that was an odd line that she said. And then we meet Kyle, the unemployed kind of younger guy living with his parents, ready to get in this Big Brother house and not have to, deal with the folks. Everyone's ready to get out of their house and see other people. Like, in these COVID times, everyone's like, oh my God, other people. Awesome. Kyle also, this was not without controversy, because originally there was a guy named Ethan cast in this spot. Some people that Ethan, or were familiar with Ethan, were posting that, he had said some very racist and very, had said some gay bashing things, and I guess he had gotten kicked out of college for basically committing a hate crime. And some videos also surfaced. So Big Brother production did the smart thing, the thing that really their only option. They removed him from sequester and replaced. They had the alternate Kyle put in. So I cannot speak to the truths of these things, but while there are some videos, there isn't much benefit of a doubt to give. But I'm glad that Kyle got a chance to come in, since so far he has proven to not really be that way. And I may refer to him throughout the season as Replacement Kyle, just because it's a fun little thing. Then we meet Julie Vu, the social media influencer, the fashionista, and also the trans house guest. So Julie has a lot of charisma as well. I was very surprised because when you hear social media influencer, you think of like the Instagram models that audition for the show and that just want to up their followings and just have their 15 minutes. But apparently she's applied for 6 seasons. She's a fan of the show, and I'm glad she's getting her shot. So everyone's just ready to get in there. And then this group thinks they're the first 4 in. They have no idea that Kiefer and Tina are watching them. And Kiefer's like, are they all models? And she's like, yeah, they're a good-looking bunch. They are a good-looking bunch. And it is fun to point out the model type archetypes for these kind of shows. And Arissa Cox, I must say, by the way, first of all, she is gorgeous. Arissa Cox is a queen. I love Arissa Cox. Because, I am not knocking Julie Chen. However, Julie Chen did not come into Big Brother 1 like, oh my God, the Holland version. Like, oh, I'm a fan. No, this was a job for her. And whilst I think she does have a love for the show, Arissa was always a fan of Big Brother. Definitely of the U.S. version, maybe even of other formats. And you can tell, like, she gets pumped, she gets jazzed hosting the show and talking about Big Brother, and she has a deep love for it. So that, combined with the fact that she is gorgeous, makes her, in my opinion, the best one of the best reality show hosts that I see. And she's also hosting her ass off. She's trying to nail it. And she doesn't have an audience to work with, but she's pushing it out there, talking about the smaller Indigenous people of Canada, all of that. She's thrown it all out there because she got bumped up to executive producer this season, and she's earned it. Arissa Cox is queen. Now that message is out of the way, we get our next group. LaToya, who is a police officer and also has a career in fashion, and she is extremely in shape. She has a lot of character to her. She's a cop and a fashionista, and I hope that she will do well because she is a unique character in the show. Then we meet Jedson, who is kind of he's a personal trainer and model, so he's kind of the typical good-looking, in-shape guy you see on reality television. Austin, she is a realtor and a model, and definitely the Instagram kind of archetype you'd see come on the show. I don't have a lot of faith in her love of the show, and she talks about like being a virgin, and they queue up the Heart Wants what the Heart Wants thing for her and Jedson, so they're like, oh, maybe they might hook up. Kind of a forced perspective, that doesn't always work out, but I could see what the production was trying to do. But again, I don't think Austin is going to. I think she'll make it very far, but I don't have a lot of stock in her game. Josh is like the conspiracy theorist guy. He's also like works in like video production. He's very interesting because like his video, he's got like just like a light bulb on in the background. Like he's very like kind of comes off a little creepy, a little alternative. But I like just something about Josh. Maybe it's the alternative look that I'm just like, I'm drawn to this guy. And I want him to do well. But I'm worried that he will not do well. LaToya talks about not looking to showmance, which is always good. Then we meet the last group, which is Rohan, the strategic manager. And the thing about Rohan is he wants to be the villain. He wants to be the Dan Giesling type, the puppet master. And I want to see him do it. But like for every Dan Giesling, for every Dr. Will, for every Mitch Moffat, there is 10 Devons from BB16. So, it could be to varying effects. But I'm curious to watch him try. We meet Victoria, the youth advocate. She is extremely energetic, very outgoing. Her energy is through the roof. And I am interested to watch her. I think she'll be an interesting character on the show. But I'm like, will they want to keep someone whose energy is always this way? Then we have Tara, the mom and spin instructor. She's got a lot of fire to her. Like she's practicing nominating her kids. She is. I have some faith in Tara. I'm enjoying her prospect coming into the show. And then finally we meet Braden, the anthropology student. He's gonna have some good confessionals. He's gonna be the kind of Gary type as far as his kind of energy. So everyone's in the house. Victoria, very high energy coming in. She's just over the moon. Kiefer jokes about, because he sees Victoria and he's like, you want to do guys versus girls? And Tina's like shutting it down. And I understand Kiefer is like trying to joke about this, and I love him for that, but like Tina's not going for it. And it just kind of falls flat. And I think he needs to really try to mend it. Like, yes, they're captaining different teams, but I feel like he and Tina need to kind of make a connection early on because it's easy for them because right now they're in a room together. Victoria has key earrings, which I'm like, what? How in tune for Big Brother, So I thought that was a nice touch. So they pick their teams, schoolyard pick. Kiefer picks Jedson, LaToya, Josh, Julie, Rohan, and Brayden. And on Team Destiny, Tina has picked Victoria, Austin, Beth, Kyle, Tashawn, and Tara. So there's going to be no HOH, good lord, or veto this round. There'll be a team safety challenge. And both captains will be safe this week. Interesting to have no HOH or power of veto, but because in the next episode we're getting the eviction, I guess they were like, well, we really got to get to it. Like, we didn't really have time for all these comps. And the losing team, all 6 members that are the captain, will be up for eviction, but they will all vote. And the only one who won't vote is Tina. She will only vote in case of a tie. So we have a very interesting round where there will be 13 votes, which you could still get a tie, but the votes got to go a lot of different ways. So the teams get their own bedrooms. Good lord, tongue-tied today. We go to the comp, which the team captains do not have to participate. But everyone else has to hold a bucket of slime, keeping with the post-apocalypto theme. And the captains' periods can add slime to certain people's buckets. And the key here, and this is a very survivor challenge, the key here is to load down people who aren't struggling. Because the people that are struggling, you don't want to waste the weight on them because they're going to fall very soon. So right off the bat, it looked like Victoria was struggling, but we get a confessional from her, and one of the very few confessionals this early episode, talking about how she's really solid, she's got this, she just wants to give off the vibe that she's struggling and not doing okay. So, basically when you drop your bucket, you're out. And Jedson is getting, all the sludge from Tina, which makes a lot of sense. Kiefer's trying to spread it out. But I understand he should really load down Tashawn. She's loading down Jedson, because you got at least, right off the bat, who looks like the strongest person, you should probably get them out as fast as you can. So the elimination order, and I tried my damnedest to keep up with this, but Rissa wasn't announcing this, so it was very hard to keep track of who, and I just met these people. It's different when you have a couple of weeks to know these people, but I was trying to remember who people were. But the elimination order that I got was Beth, Josh, Julie, Kyle, Jedson, Tashawn, and then we get a confession from Brayden saying the stakes couldn't be higher, even though with 6 nominees they really couldn't be much lower. And he's like, I don't eat steaks, and I'm like, well, I don't know. That just seems like such a goofy, forced confessional. It really didn't feel natural, but it is very in line with Big Brother. And then Tara goes out, Latoya goes out, and Austin and Brayden go out, leaving Rohan and Victoria. Victoria she's holding in there. I was very proud of her. And Rohan drops, and Victoria wins it for Team Destiny, which means Rohan, Latoya, Jedson, Julie, Brayden, and Josh will be on the block, one of whom will be gone in the next episode. And Team Destiny gets a feast, while Team Defender gets one night of slop. And Brayden's already resenting the slop, but it's one night. If you really don't want to eat slop, just don't eat tonight. And tomorrow morning, you'll be fine. We only have a few hours. You know what I mean? This is more of a novelty of enjoying the slop, right? So that was the first episode. Like I said, not a whole lot there. Team Destiny is safe. Kiefer is safe, but everyone else is on the block. And it's the very first time we've had, this many people up for eviction. So it presented an interesting concept, to say the least. So in episode 2, Kiefer talks about feeling bad that his team lost, because when you're the captain, you kind of take responsibility, even though it's not necessarily your fault. And Victoria felt like she would be targeted early, which I think she did suss that out correctly. If this was a standard season start of having a 1 HOH, Victoria could have potentially been targeted early. So I think she sussed that out well, but because she dominated this thing, I think she, at least for now, put up a good relationship with at least the people on Team Destiny, because she's the reason they're safe this week, or this round, when it was like 5 or 6 days they were in the house. I know for us it's only 2 nights, but for them they moved in on Saturday, so it was almost a week. Meanwhile, Josh is waiting for the other shoe to drop, because he's like, everyone is being, buddy-buddy, which, I think every season you have that conversation. Like, at the beginning, everyone's just, and especially in this, people are just happy to see other people. But when's that moment where shit's going to hit the fan and things are going to get, someone's going home on Thursday. So, something has to go down to figure out who they're voting for. But in his confessional, he just kind of trails off. He doesn't really have a coherent thought. So he's quick to jump. I don't think he really knows what to do. Julie and Brayden very quickly talk about Josh. Josh needs to go. Got to be Josh. Brayden in particular, tossing Josh under, but Julie's part of it. Meanwhile, Tashawn and Jedson broing down, which, they're two, of course they would gravitate toward each other. So they're broing down, even though they're on opposite teams. And Tashawn wants to bring LaToya into the group. So Tashawn wants to work with 2 team defenders. Which will bring an interesting, to start to form this, alpha group, which we always see on these kinds of shows. Meanwhile, Brayden is having a horrible time coping with the slop. Everyone else is, getting through it. Jedson's it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Which, yeah, I think just the hype of slop is more, but Brayden just refuses it. And Julie jokes about wanting to use it as a face mask. Meanwhile, Tina, Beth, and Victoria are all having a conversation in the bathroom, and Tina was I doing that thing, I like this 3. I think we should make something of this 3. And meanwhile, Victoria's in the shower, just oh my god, I'm in the Big Brother shower, and she the door swings open, so she flashes Tina and Beth, and just they lose their minds laughing. So Victoria already bringing the gold to the show for sure. LaToya is ready. She gets the offer from the boys. And I think in her mind, she's yes, I'm gonna put 2 meat shields in front of me, and they'll get taken out before I do. But any progress they make in the game is progress I make. So for her, one, you're never gonna turn down an alliance, but this is actually a really good route for her at this point, right? So LaToya and the boys want to vote Julie off. So now we have Julie and Josh coming up as potential targets for the week. And Austin, Julie, and Brayden have decided to make an alliance called the Dolls. And they are posing on the couch. They're posing by the door. They're posing in the diary room. They're just posing. It's like Team Rocket. They're just posing all around. And then that was quite a fun scene. So we have a lot of alliances really just getting thrown out there. So we got the whole Tina, Beth, Victoria thing. A lot of 3s. We got the Dolls, which at least this one has a name. We have the Jed, Tashawn, LaToya contingency. So we have a lot of 3 people alliances coming together. Team Destiny then has a meeting to try to come up with a name. And we don't really see what name they come up with, but they're going to, it is in their best interest at this point in the game to vote together. And then Julie, everyone's having like a powwow. I think they get real deep real fast because, again, these people, a lot of them haven't interacted with people in a while. So it's like they're ready to have these kinds of conversations. So Josh talks about his coming out. Braden talks about his coming out. LaToya talks about being bisexual. And Julie, of course, talks about coming out as gay and then transitioning, and her kind of gets all of her story out there. And so I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation in these times. I think this is a good moment for the show. And even with all this crazy game, that we can still sit down and have a very human conversation. LaToya also talks about being born in Jamaica, which I thought was a very nice conversation. And Kiefer, I can't remember what part, what island or whatever he's from, but he says his people have a very distinct language. He does a little, a saying from them in this language, and he wants to learn more of it because it's a dying language, because it's an old culture, and he doesn't want to see it go out. So that's, again, very nice thing to throw into the show. Which can, we have a lot of strategy and a lot of other things, but sometimes it's nice just to sit down and have a human moment. Then Josh feels like, I feel like I'm falling to the outside, which is completely true. And he's not really made any connections with people that could really save him at this particular juncture. So he immediately goes to Julie and says that I think there's a Pretty Boys 2.0. And I think it flashes to Jed, to Sean, Rohan, and Kyle, which is an interesting, I guess if you were going to suss out 4 people to be in a Pretty Boys alliance, I guess that would be the people you have to work with. Josh really working hard to basically say, let's vote Rohan, because he needs to get the votes off of himself, which is good, but he doesn't really have much of a point. You know what I mean? I think sometimes he doesn't exactly know how to fully structure what he's saying. Meanwhile, Tashawn, wanders over to the couch near them, and they just disband because they think they're being listened to, which, could have been. I couldn't quite tell. So Julie takes that information, and instead of, taking it to the dolls or kind of keeping it to herself, she runs and gets this group of Bray, Vic, LaToya, and Beth. So she has Braden, who is, in the dolls, but Victoria and Beth are on the other team, and LaToya, she has no idea of knowing it, but is working with the boys. So she has this random group of people, and she spills all the beans to, with no, she's like, oh yeah, by the way, Josh said that there's a Pretty Boys thing going on, and then, but there was no point in what she was saying. Now, if she had said, and that's why we can't trust Josh and we need to get him out, or if she had said, I think there's some truth, maybe we should try to turn this vote on someone else, she didn't have a point. So, one, she looks untrustworthy because she's just running random information to random people, and 2, there was no goal in providing this information. So this looks bad for Julie, and especially LaToya, who is working with the boys, already wants Julie out. It's now I really want her out because I can't trust this girl. And Tina is trying to throw Rohan out to the other girls. And Beth's yes, this as long as it's not Josh, because Josh is always going to be a target. Which at this point, Josh just doesn't have any allies. If you're trying to have an easy week, you could definitely toss Josh onto the block and send him home because you're not going to anger anybody. So if he's really causing this much dismay, keep him in the game. I understand that, but in a way, it's if you really want to keep dismay out there, you need Julie there because Julie and LaToya have this tiff. But I understand, again, that, like, the thought process of, like, hey, Josh could be an easy week. And a lot of the times in Big Brother, when you're HOH, you want to have an easy week. So, Josh then tells Julie, having no idea she ran his information, that LaToya said her name. So Julie immediately, instead of taking time, trying to have a conversation with LaToya and just kind of gauge where she's at, she just runs to LaToya. Is like, did you say my name? Because I'm hearing you saying my name. Which is not a good thing, a good way to approach it. But LaToya gives her nothing. She's like, I'm not going to have this conversation. I'm going to the hot tub. And then Julie's like, you don't talk to me like that. And it's like, okay, well, what did you gain from this interaction? Now LaToya really doesn't like you, like really wants you out, and you got no information. So like it's just really, it ended up being really bad for Julie. Things are just snowballing very fast for Julie. So Julie's then trying to turn the votes on LaToya, which is just not going to happen. Meanwhile, Tara is like right by them when this happens. And she's like, I'm stressed from that situation. And I'm like, yeah, because like it is awkward to be that person. And like if you're in a room and two people just start arguing in front of you, it's very awkward. Because like to leave, you got to like go through that. But like also like you just kind of watch it play out. And you're just kind of like, okay, I guess I'm here. So I understand Tara's point of view there, and I felt for her. But in a way, you got some information. At least you see the drama is not related to you. So Brayden asks if he's a target. And like this is the point where all the nominees are anonymously asked questions from the other house guests. Brayden asked if he thinks he's a target, and he of course tries to just give that stock answer of like, hey, everyone's a target, but I'm a social player, blah blah. Jedson is asked if a final two is important, and he again gives like a stock answer of like, hey, it's important, but like down the road. Don't play too hard, even though he already has his final two with Deshaun. Rohan is asked if he's formed connections, or if he's worried about going out, which he says, I've made my connections with people. Joss asked about the guys' alliance, and he's like, yeah, I just got paranoid. And that's all he says, which is like great Josh stuff, but again, he's not very good at connecting. LaToya asked if she tossed Julie under the bus, and she's like, yeah, I want you gone. So LaToya is very upfront, and she says, I'm real, but it's like, okay, if you're really upfront about targeting people, like you're just going to make yourself, like, whereas you were going to be behind two meat shields, you're now in front of the meat shields as their meat shield, which is not good. You don't want to be a figurehead of anything. And LaToya is making herself the vocal target in the future. And Julie asked who the weakest person was, and she just tosses Josh out there, which I guess if she knows it's down between her and Josh, that's how you do it. But like she throws a lot of shade at Josh, who genuinely tried to help her the whole week. Like Josh never did anything bad to her, but she just kept, like she just shoved him under. So we get to the votes. There'll be 13 votes. Austin voted for Julie, Beth for Julie, Brayden for Julie, and at this point I'm like, shit, Brayden was and Austin were in the dolls, and they voted out the other doll, the third doll. And at this point I'm like, fuck, Julie's gonna go home. Josh votes for Julie votes for Josh, and Julie eye rolls Josh. So it's like, again, I don't know why you're so angry at him. Jed votes for Julie, LaToya for Julie, Victoria for Josh, Kyle for Julie, Kiefer for Julie, Rohan for Julie, Tara for Julie, and Tashawn for Julie. So by a vote of 11-2, Julie is the first evicted and has a line going out of like, there's no room for a queen amongst peasants. She goes out like a star. Like Julie is great. And I'm very, very, very sad to see her go because she was a fan. I think she could have brought a lot to the season. But however, there's not a whole lot of people in this cast that I think won't bring things to the season. I think this is a great cast. I think it's a group of people ready to play the game. I'm very excited to see them play the game. But I was also pretty sad to see Julie go. There wasn't anyone on the block right now that I was like really ready to part ways with. Gone too soon was Julie Vu. And it looks like there won't be any sort of buyback because it wasn't mentioned. So, this is, quite frankly, the end of Julie Vu. And with that being said, I'm interested to see, obviously the Dolls thing is over before it even started. But the whole Jed, Tashawn, LaToya contingency may grow. You have the Tina, Beth, Victoria contingency that may grow. Will Josh find his route? Will Rohan be able to do this puppet master thing? There's a lot of questions. And, live feeds came on after this episode. I was not able to watch them yet, but I'm going to try to do my best to catch up on the live feeds, what I missed. And on the next podcast, I'll do the episode and then also maybe take some time to talk about what's going on the feeds as well. With that being said, guys, I am super duper duper excited to be covering Big Brother Canada. It's my first Big Brother Canada season I've been covering on the podcast. And I will still be covering the Big Brother US season 1, which I'm watching right now, and I'll also be releasing what I did on BBCAN. I'm still going to be doing all the other podcasts. It's just that, they might not come out as frequently while this is on because this takes priority because it's on now. So with that being said, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all the other podcasts and videos from my channel. Thank you for the love and support. Stay safe. Most importantly, stay nerdy. Until next time.